The world of celebrity rivalries has just witnessed a spectacle no one expected. David Beckham, the football icon turned global entrepreneur, has unintentionally humiliated Meghan Markle by turning a simple homemade jam venture into a cultural phenomenon, one that now threatens to completely overshadow her struggling luxury lifestyle brand as ever. What began as a light-hearted gesture from Beckham, sharing jars of jam he personally made and distributed to close friends, has snowballed into a worldwide craze. In stark contrast, Meghan's brand, launched with great fanfare and position as a symbol of luxury and sophistication, has faced backlash, mockery, and disappointing sales figures. The humiliation is not just professional, but deeply personal, as Meghan's attempt to outshine the competition have instead turned her into the subject of ridicule, with Prince Harry watching helplessly as one of his closest friends delivers a crushing blow to his wife's carefully curated image. Meghan Markle's as ever was meant to be a rebirth, a chance to reclaim her narrative and build an empire outside of the royal shadow. When she announced the brand with polished teasers and staged photographs, expectations soared. Yet even as she unveiled her artisanal jam, critics quickly noticed the absurdity of a duchess selling fruit preserves at prices that eclipsed what most would spend on a week's worth of groceries. The backlash was instant, with accusations of elitism, tone-deaf marketing, and an inflated sense of self-importance dominating public discourse. Then, almost out of nowhere, Beckham entered the scene. Unlike Meghan's heavily stylized launch, Beckham posted casual, light-hearted images of his jars, complete with handwritten labels and a humble caption, never intending to ignite a firestorm. But that effortless authenticity struck a chord with millions. His jam, unpretentious and charming, became a symbol of simplicity, eclipsing Meghan's luxury aspirations overnight. The humiliation was sharpened by the personal history between the two families. Once, the Sussexes and Beckhams were close, their friendship highlighted during royal weddings and public appearances. Harry and David shared camaraderie, while Meghan basked in Victoria Beckham's chic influence. But cracks emerged after Meghan allegedly accused Victoria of leaking stories to press, a claim that deeply offended the Beckhams and fractured the relationship. With that betrayal still lingering, Beckham's accidental triumph in the jam wars has been interpreted as poetic justice. A man once pushed aside by Meghan now effortlessly succeeding in the very arena where she sought dominance. To many observers, it feels like karma delivered through fruit preserves. The middle of this unfolding drama revealed just how wide the gap between Beckham and Meghan had grown. Beckham's homemade jam became the talk of social media, sparking trends, memes, and even fan clubs dedicated to his unassuming product. People clamored to get their hands on it, with jars selling for astronomical amounts on resale markets, while Meghan's as ever faced ridicule for high prices and low relatability. Publications that once eagerly covered Meghan's ventures began to pivot toward Beckham's story, framing him as a people's entrepreneur, while painting her as desperate and out of touch. The juxtaposition was brutal. Beckham, without trying, embodied authenticity and charm, while Meghan, despite meticulous planning, embodied pretension and failure. Prince Harry's role in this humiliation cannot be ignored. Once fiercely protective of Meghan, he now found himself caught in the crossfire of a rivalry that left him looking powerless. His attempts to distance himself from the growing narrative only worsened the perception that he had aligned himself with the losing side. For royal watchers, the image of Harry silently enduring his wife's humiliation at the hands of his former friend was telling. Once the Golden Prince of Britain, he now appeared diminished, dragged into controversies that constantly left him antagonized and overshadowed. Meghan's defeat wasn't just hers. It was his too, and the sting of that failure was visible in every photograph of him since the jam debacle began. The controversy deepened when insiders revealed that Meghan allegedly pressured her team to outdo Beckham in every possible way, demanding aggressive marketing campaigns, and even considering new product lines to divert attention from comparison. Yet these frantic moves only worsened the situation, making her appear insecure and reactive. Meanwhile, Beckham did nothing. He let his jam speak for itself, content to bask in the glow of a public that adored him not because he sought attention, but because his simplicity felt genuine. This stark contrast only amplified Meghan's humiliation, turning her into the villain of her own narrative while Beckham emerged as the accidental hero. The endgame of the saga promises to be even more controversial. With Beckham's jam now positioned as a cultural phenomenon and Meghan's as ever brand teetering on the brink of collapse, the humiliation is complete. Analysts suggest that Meghan's brand may never recover from the mockery, as consumer perception has been fatally damaged. Every failed sale, every unsold jar, and every social media joke cements her as the Duchess who was outdone by jam. For Harry, the fallout is equally devastating. The world sees him not as a supportive husband, but as a man dragged down by his wife's relentless need for validation and control. His once bright star dims further with every headline comparing Meghan's failure to Beckham's triumph. And yet, the most cutting irony lies in the fact that Meghan's humiliation is permanent. Beckham doesn't need to keep producing jam to remain victorious. The damage has already been done. Meghan, on the other hand, must now live with the stain of this defeat, her brand forever associated with elitism, pretension, and failure. What began as a competition Meghan never asked for, or perhaps one she thought she had already won, has spiraled into a global spectacle that now defines her public image more than any Hollywood role, royal title, or philanthropic endeavor ever could. The middle chapters of this debacle reveal how Beckham's jam, almost absurd in its simplicity, transformed into a cultural counterpoint to Meghan's carefully curated brand. Social media became the battlefield where the humiliation played out in real time. TikTokers mocked his ever-polished aesthetic by staging dupe videos where they made their own jam for a fraction of the price. Instagram Reels compared Beckham's scrawled handwritten labels with Meghan's ornate logo-stamped packaging, always concluding with the same verdict. Beckham felt real, Meghan felt fake. Twitter/X, never short on cruelty, flooded with memes portraying Meghan crushed under jars of Beckham's jam. Every platform echoed the same message. When it comes to authenticity, Meghan had no chance. The media, always eager to exploit a good rivalry, poured fuel on the fire. Headlines like From Football to Fruit, How Beckham Outsold Meghan, or Why Meghan's Luxury Jam Failed While Beckham's Homemade Preserves Won Hearts dominated front pages and online outlets. Late-night comedians joined in, skewering Meghan's as ever with biting monologues that drew laughter at her expense. Each new cycle of ridicule further marginalized her, cementing the idea that she was no longer a trendsetter but a cautionary tale. Behind the scenes, the humiliation was even more severe. Insiders close to Meghan alleged she grew increasingly frantic, holding late-night meetings with her team to brainstorm ways to salvage her brand. Ideas reportedly ranged from celebrity endorsements to dramatic price cuts, but none of them stemmed the tide of ridicule. Worse still, whispers began circulating that Harry himself was growing weary of the constant failures, privately venting frustration that their family name was being dragged through yet another scandal. For a man already accused of abandoning his royal duties, being tied to Meghan's failed ventures only reinforced a narrative of him as a diminished prince, once admired, now mocked. The fractured friendship between the Sussexes and the Beckhams also became a focal point of the humiliation. Once invited into each other's inner circles, the two couples now stood on opposite sides of a cultural divide. Sources close to the Beckhams suggested that David and Victoria found Meghan's arrogance unbearable, particularly after her alleged accusations that Victoria leaked personal information to the press. That rift, left to fester, became the backdrop against which Beckham's triumph now played out. Many interpreted his jam's success as poetic justice, an accidental yet devastating rebuke to the Duchess who once tried to diminish him. As the controversy deepened, Beckham continued to play the role of the humble victor. He didn't gloat, didn't posture, and didn't attempt to monetize his jam phenomenon beyond its natural demand. That restraint only made Meghan look worse. Every aggressive marketing move from his ever appeared desperate and calculated, while Beckham's quiet confidence spoke volumes. Even those with no particular loyalty to the Sussexes or the Beckhams found themselves siding with David, if only because his approach felt honest. The lesson was simple yet brutal. Meghan's perfectionism was her downfall, while Beckham's imperfections were his charm. By now, as ever has become synonymous with failure, a brand mocked not just for its overpriced products, but for what it symbolizes, Meghan's inability to connect with the public on anything other than her own terms. Sales figures, reportedly far below expectations, confirm what critics had long predicted. Her lifestyle empire has no legs to stand on. The more she pushes, the less the public buys, both literally and figuratively. Beckham, meanwhile, emerges as the unintentional disruptor. His jam is not just a product, but a cultural moment, immortalized in headlines, memes, and a collective memory of a public eager to see the mighty fall. He didn't need to destroy Meghan's brand. She destroyed it herself. All he had to do was exist. And in doing so, he exposed the hollowness of her carefully crafted empire. For Harry, the fallout is devastating. Once again, he finds himself portrayed as weak, helpless, and antagonized by forces beyond his control. His silence in the face of Meghan's humiliation reads not as loyalty, but as resignation. A prince who no longer commands respect, but endures ridicule. Once seen as a rebel carving his own path, he now looks like a man dragged into battles he cannot win, watching as his wife's ambitions implode and take him down with them. The humiliation is permanent because it has crossed into the realm of cultural memory. Long after Meghan rebrands or pivots to her next project, people will remember that she was outdone not by another duchess, not by a Hollywood mogul, but by David Beckham and a jar jam. That is a kind of defeat that lingers, that clings to a reputation no matter how much it is scrubbed or spun.